Yeah, so let's get started with our program. I'd love to introduce everybody to Jonathan Poole, who is here on your screen. Jonathan focuses on strategic growth for FAME. FAME is the Finance Authority of Maine, and Jonathan's role is focused on working to make a positive impact on Maine businesses and people. He's here to talk us through his presentation that involves helping Maine businesses connect with funding resources. So Jonathan, take it away.
Great. Thanks, Angela. Hi, everyone. Jonathan Poole, like Angela said, I'm the Director of Strategic Growth at FAME. Essentially, what that means is I get to do all the fun new projects at FAME, and one of those being the Maine Funding Network. So I'm excited to share that with you. And we're going to start with a little video that is brand new. So I hope you enjoy. It's 30 seconds, but it does a good job of sharing an overview, and we hope to share on our socials and website so that it can be a resource for businesses as well.
As an entrepreneur in Maine, finding the funding you need can feel like another full-time job. The Maine Funding Network was created to simplify the process of finding and applying for alternative business funding and resources. Go to mainefundingnetwork.com. A checklist is available to guide you. Use a simple form. It lets us know what you're looking for and will match you with support for your business plan and alternative funding matches. Everything from loans to equity investments and innovation grants. Once you connect with your matches, you'll only need to complete one common application for most of the funding options. The Maine Funding Network is here to help you better navigate the path to success. You've got a plan, we have a way.
For that brand new video, we have a couple of those that'll both be ads on social media and available on our website. And we hope to add more resources to our website moving forward. But now to dive into the presentation, I promise it will be brief and hopefully not painful as we go into this. So quick rundown of what we're going to talk about today. What is the Maine Funding Network? Kind of its origins, where it started, the idea for it, how it works, who's a member of the network. I'll run through a quick demo of filling out the match request and what it looks like to be presented with your matches, and then leave plenty of time to answer questions and also get your feedback on what would be more helpful for your clients moving forward, because I think we're nearing a year in operation, and I think we have a lot of lessons learned about what's been successful, and we'd love to continue gathering feedback on how to make it more useful for businesses and our partner organizations moving forward. The Maine Funding Network is very much tied to my experience in the economic development world in Maine. So I moved back to Maine after 10 years, 11 years away in July of 2020. And I think everyone remembers what was happening in July of 2020. I got a job working for DECD, working for Commissioner Johnson, and very quickly was tapped to administer a lot of the CARES Act funding programs for Maine businesses. So the small Maine Economic Recovery Grant programs, and then advising DHHS and Ag on how to create and distribute their grant programs as well to support businesses. And so one of the things that we learned very quickly in that is that there are so many great public and nonprofit organizations throughout the state of Maine that businesses do not have the visibility of. And so they are unable to, for example, I'll pick one, AvCog, and we'd say, oh, AvCog has resources, both advisory and funding programs, and businesses would be like, what's an AvCog? And it's, then, oh, it's the Androscoggin Valley Council of Governments. It's supported by the Economic Development Administration. They have all these incredible programs. And so, we quickly learned that businesses need help navigating this complex web of business support organizations throughout the state. And it doesn't help that we're all some 4 or 5 letter acronym, and so whether it's FAME, MTI, CEI, AvCog, GPCog, it's just this constant alliteration of just noise to businesses. And so how can we make it easier for businesses to navigate this landscape? And, very quickly, people kept saying, oh, I heard you're the person to talk to because you can point me in the right direction. And so, because I got to know all these organizations throughout COVID and how to support businesses through COVID. And so businesses started coming to me saying, I have this question or this need, who should I talk to? And we came up with this idea of creating a central digital front door for this economic development business support ecosystem. And it started really broad, and we realized, okay, let's not try to boil the ocean. Let's focus on kind of the highest need first, which at the time was funding. And that's kind of where the idea came from is back in 2020, 2021 of creating a central digital front door to all the agencies, public and nonprofit in Maine, that have funding programs. And again, right now, we're only doing evergreen funding programs. So these are not, one-time grant programs or anything like that. These are the core loan, equity, and grant programs that are evergreen. A little bit on the history, how it works, which I'm sure everyone has read the article, and if you haven't, please do. But essentially, a business would find their way to the Maine Funding Network and create an account. In our Salesforce enabled platform. And we had a long debate of, do we want this to be, how robust do we want to be the user experience, the interface? And we decided that being able to create an account, log in, come back to see your records, to make edits, to do all that was really needed because during COVID, we used some web forms that you couldn't save and come back to. And so creating the ability of businesses to log in and save and feel like there's a secure access point to their data was important to us. And so a business will go out and fill out the form, which I'll show you briefly, with some basic information about their business, where they are, what they're looking for in terms of funding and or advising. And then they'd be matched with various providers around the state. You would then submit your match to the providers who would then review at a high level your information. And if they want some more information, they can give you a call or email. And then depending on that, for example, Fame will review all the match requests, give you a call, get some more information about you and your business, determine if you're a good fit for Fame's funding programs. And if you are, then they would accept the match request, and then you'd have access to the common loan application, which currently there are 22, 23 members of the Maine Funding Network. It varies, regularly because we're always bringing on new members. But of those, I think 13 or 14 are lenders. And so all have access to this common loan application. So if you're submitting a loan to multiple different locations, a loan application, you only need to fill out one loan request. And again, this is collaborative, which the article said. And I'll get into this here. So the types of capital and services offered currently on the Maine Funding Network is broken up into loans, innovation grants, equity investing, and we say collaborative capital, but what this means is if you're a business that needs $2 million, there aren't many agencies in the state of Maine that can do a $2 million loan. However, Fame plus CEI plus AvCog can get you pretty close when you look at how these agencies typically work together. And so all of our agencies work really well together, and this is where the common loan application becomes helpful because we all have somewhat of an aligned mission of supporting Maine businesses in their growth objectives, and we are collaborative, non-competitive in our efforts to get there. And that's why banks and credit unions, not saying that they can't be collaborative, but we're not having banks and credit unions be members of the Maine Funding Network for a few different reasons. One of those being we didn't want to feel like there was a competitive edge in the network for various leads. Also not listed on this slide is business advisory. The number of business advisors that we've brought on, business advisory organizations we've brought on has increased since its initial ideation. We originally had just 3 business advisory organizations. We had SCORE, SBDC, and the CEI Women's Business Center. And since launching, we've brought on Black-Owned Maine, the Greater Portland Immigrant Welcome Center, Business Hub. Trying to think of who else. We'll get to partners, I think, on the next slide. But we've increased the membership of advisors because we've found that that it's been a great resource, even if you're not looking for funding or you're not ready for funding, or if in tandem with a funding request, you want an advisor request, being able to point people in the right direction depending on various characteristics in your match request has been great. Like I said, here is the network. So I'm not going to read all the names, but we have one innovation grant provider, which everyone knows, Maine Technology Institute. We have two equity providers, Maine Angels and Maine Venture Fund. One of the areas where we see growth is increasing the number of kind of mission-driven equity funds or non-traditional forms of capital being represented. We've had early conversations with Flexible Capital Fund out of Vermont, which does both equity and revenue-based financing. And they're mission-driven investment firm. And then kind of the remainder are advisory organizations and lenders throughout the state. So we have several statewide lenders, we have several regional lenders, a couple municipal lenders. And so the ability of a business to feel like there's a resource for them is high. And we make sure that even if you put in some mix of match request information, even if there's a null set of providers, you'd still be shown all the advisory matches. So SCORE and SBDC would always be an option for you, because that's what those organizations exist for, is to answer your questions and get you kind of to the next step. I'm going to pause there before I go into a demo. Any questions of anything I've covered so far?
Jonathan,
Yeah.
have the organizations that you're listing here, have they routed all of their requests through the Common App, or are they still taking applications individually as well?
Yep. So great question. The answer is they are still taking applications individually, and we found that, and this is one of the changes we will potentially explore moving forward, is that the Common App, I think, is a great resource and a great option, but not being mandatory, I think, because a lot of organizations, have tailored their application to specific needs. And so when a customer, let's say, finds community concepts independently of the Maine Funding Network, there's no reason to send them to the loan application itself, or to the Maine Funding Network to access the common loan application. So all these agencies are still maintaining their loan applications and the common loan application.
And a follow-up to that is, do you have any statistics or metrics on outcomes, on results?
Great question. So early metrics, and I still say early because this is still an experiment. We have been supporting roughly 35 to 50 businesses a month find a match. And what we're seeing is that a lot of these businesses are still very early stage, either in their business planning process or in their funding journey. And so they're at the point in their business life cycle saying, I feel like I need money, in order to get to my next step, but they haven't gone through the process of creating a detailed business plan, of really vetting and preparing their financials. And so there's kind of that advisory step that needs to take place. And so we've closed a few loans across the network since its inception, but have really been successful in connecting that 35 to 50 businesses a month to every member in the network has received, at least a few matches. So yeah.
And so I think,
sorry.
I think that on that advice, and I see a couple of other hands up here, so I'm sorry for monopolizing. I think that on the business plan and advisory piece, I see SCORE and I see SBDC, and along the same lines as not wanting to compete with banks, I think that there may be an element of folks who provide business plans and provide advisory services may have a concern about the competitive nature of, routing some folks to SBDC or SCORE,
Mhm.
competing with other parties who provide advisory services, specifically consultants who are on this call. Just not
I
to put too fine a point on it.
And I think that's why we've still kept the lens as funding. You know, we're not coming in and saying, you know, one of the options isn't business plan support, because if we do that, you know, if we include one of the options as business plan support, then we would need to bring in, you know, more partners that provide those services. And so keeping it funding focused as a way to say, you know, you're looking for a loan and business advising, that sort of.
So SBDC provides funding and SCORE
No,
provides funding?
they just provide advising, and the reason why they're included is because of the public nonprofit nature of it.
I see.
Yeah.
So if independent consultants were to provide pro bono, they business plan support or advising, they could be included also then.
Potentially. You know, we need to look at it to make sure that, you know, it makes sense to include individual contractors as part of the Maine Funding Network, just as the kind of way we have it set up.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Can I, if I could jump in, Jonathan, I think you might want to clarify, when you say you don't compete with commercial lenders, usually the reason people need access to this money is because they've already been turned down.
Yes. So the reason why we're not competing, we've gone to the Maine Bankers Association and Credit Union League and said, please use the Maine Funding Network as a resource. So whether the bank has said no or only partially funding, you know, creating a gap in the funding plan, please send the businesses to the Maine Funding Network. And we've had several commercial lenders kind of add this to their toolkit when engaging with businesses to say, you know, no, but go to the Maine Funding Network and see if there's, you know, one of the, you know, organizations that lend at greater risk can support your business growth goals.
Right. So you're not competing on price for sure because of the higher risk.
Yeah, most all of these organizations lend at, you know, prime +2. So.
Right. So you're working with the Bankers Association. Any other commercial lending groups that you've got your feelers out to?
You know, so Maine Bankers Association, and then through our regular engagement, because through Maine's FAME's commercial loan insurance program, we have relationships with all the Maine banks and some, you know, that are just starting to do business in Maine. And so in our regular engagements with them and trainings to lenders, so we hold regular trainings with commercial lenders around the state of Maine. We'll include a session on the Maine Funding Network and how it is a resource for commercial lenders and not a competitive aspect to them.
Right. Just as a tip, what I find is that the bank may know about it, but the loan officers may not. In other words, it's not trickling down to the person who's sitting down with the client.
And so that's our engagement has been primarily with loan officers and less with kind of PR arms of the banks. So
terrific.
Charlie, you had a question.
Yeah, would it be possible to get a picture of this copy of what you have here? Because, and then a follow-up is, I'm not familiar with Four Directions. Who are they? And I'm not sure I understand who America's SBDC is.
Yep. So Four Directions is the organization based out of Orono that lends to Maine's Native American population. So they do business advisory and lending for the Wabanaki tribes in Maine. And then America's SBDC. So SBDC is a funded program both by DECD, so that they receive state funding and federal funding from the Department of Commerce through EDA to provide advisory services throughout the state of Maine. And so they have business advisors throughout the state, and their Mark Delisle is the president of SBDC, and throughout, you know, regardless of where you are, you can in the state of Maine find a business advisor and set up a meeting with them.
That's great. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, and so, again, the goal is, to introduce people to agencies they may not have heard of before, especially, if they feel like they've been turned down at every step. So
Charlie, I don't know whether we're going to make the slide available. I do know we're
I can
recording.
send this to Carrie and Angela. I can send this to you and you can send it out to those that have registered.
Right. But the quick in is just to go to the website.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can simply go there. You can't miss it. Let's put it that way.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
Any other questions before moving on to a quick demo?
I'd love to just point out, Charlie earlier in the chat asked for more info about MTI. And though that is embedded in the resources here, Jonathan, Carrie, maybe you or I can also drop the link directly to MTI in here as a response
Sure.
to that question.
Sure. The Merck link is a subpage of the MTI.
Oh, okay, perfect. So it is in there, Charlie. If you look at the chat from Carrie, it says Merck website link. So you'll be able to link directly to that page to answer that question.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
I'm familiar with Merck, and Brian Whitney, in my opinion, is one of the greatest guys in the world. Okay, he's fantastic. He's been to our plant. He's a wonderful guy. Just a super person. He was super. But I two things I did. I thought I heard something other than Merck. I thought you said something. There was some other program out there besides Merck. So maybe I just misunderstood you.
I'm not aware of another program specifically for consulting, but MTI certainly does loans.
Yeah, MTI does loans, equity, and grants, but the way their process works is they start at the grant level, and then depending on your growth and maturity with MTI, then they would open up the door to equity and loans moving forward.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Yep. Okay, next step. So as Carrie said, you can go to the website and check it out. And so we will be revamping the website in the coming months. And again, with a goal of increasing the number of resources presented on the site as a way to be a resource for entrepreneurs to understand capital. Because I think that's one of the areas in the Maine entrepreneurial ecosystem that is lacking is the amount of capital education there is. The number of people I talk to that, say they would love an equity investment or talk to a VC when their business is really a Main Street type business that wouldn't fit the profile of an equity investor or a VC provider. And so really understanding having businesses get an education in debt, in equity, in grants, in loan insurance, and what it all means to build out a capital stack. And I think so moving forward, we're going to include more resources around education. But the Maine Funding Network website is pretty simple. We try to keep it very clear and always pointing people to the Find My Match function. And so, like Carrie said, if you just want to see the network, it talks about who we are and what we do, and then you can explore all the members of the network here. And then when you're ready, when a business is ready, they'd click the Find My Match and be set up to create an account in the Salesforce instance. I'm already logged into my account just for ease. And as you can see, I've done several demos of the tool just to test the functionality when we add new members or we add new matching functions. But I'll click New Match Request. And I'll share my contact information at the end. So, but that is my phone number if you would like to ever reach out. So you put in your contact information, legal business name. Let's say I am opening a bike shop. I don't have a website yet. I live in Brunswick. So we'll put Brunswick in here. So that's all basic up until here. And then do you have a Maine-based business and we have a definition of what a Maine-based business is, and the reason we have to ask this question is because there are some providers that are restricted to either lending or funding to businesses that fit kind of a unique definition of what a Maine-based business is. FAME, MTI, MVF are the three that really have that unique stipulation. And so I'm just going to say I'm a registered Maine business. I'm an LLC. I'm in retail. And this is where it says, what type of product are you looking for? And so for sake of the demo, I'm going to say I am looking for business loans, innovation funding, equity investment, and business advising. And so, like I just said, the bike shop would not be a good fit for either innovation funding or equity investment. But again, for the sake of the demo, bear with me. This is where you'd put in the amount of funding you're looking for. We've broken it up into just simple buckets at this point. So we'll say 50 to 100,000. And then matching funds, as all of you know, or I'm sure you know that there are some providers that require matching funds to be eligible. So do you have resources to match the investment? I'm going to say yes. 75,000 available. I need the capital soon, and I need it to start a business and have some working capital. I have a good credit score. And this is just a self-reporting credit score. Credit score will not be run until you actually apply for funding. And then I found it from the website. And then, as mentioned, since there are some providers that either support BIPOC-owned businesses or Indigenous-owned businesses, and I'm sure someday we'll have a veterans business support group listed, but this is where you'd select that. So I am just happen to be a veteran, but again, we don't have any groups that tailor to veterans to date. But I'm also going to select Native American just so you can see one of the providers come up. And then some disclosures that just explain who FAME is, how FAME owns the Maine Funding Network and what we do with the match request data, and then whether or not you'd like to stay in touch with the Maine Funding Network moving forward. So one final save, the button turns green to submit your match request. Page reloads. And this is where you're presented with all your matches. And so you're able to explore the various providers' websites. And since I clicked so many different qualifiers, I have a lot of matches. But again, if I had just clicked lending, then I would see much fewer matches. I'd see 3 matches or so. For example, like if I can click FAME's link to explore FAME's website, and then when I'm ready to submit, I'm going to submit to FAME just because I can tell our team not to take any action on the request. I would click submit match request to provider, and it says, "Are you sure?" Submit. It changes to submitted to lender. And then what happens here is, so the lending team at FAME, I just got an email in my inbox that says, Jonathan Poole of Bike Shop is interested in matching with the Finance Authority of Maine. Please reach out to Jonathan as soon as you can. And so I would get a phone call or an email from one of our loan officers at FAME to have an initial conversation. And if they thought I was a good fit, they would accept my match request and tell me to start filling out the common loan application and reach out if they have any questions. If I wasn't a good fit, they would reject it and recommend reaching out to SCORE or SBDC or one of the other advisors, or a general business advisor to support me in my growth goals and come back when a little more prepared for funding. So
I'm going to throw you I'm going to
Sorry?
throw you a softball question
Yeah.
here. This means that upon submission, an actual human being will call the client.
Yes.
People won't get stuck in any kind of decision tree or anything like that.
Nope. So the only automated decision tree is what matches are presented to you.
Correct.
And so that's the only kind of coding that's set up here, or algorithm, and it's a very basic series of if-then statements. Did you click this box? Then you'd be presented this match. And so the system has worked pretty well so far, and I think our partner organizations. I just got an email from CEI last night saying that they love the new leads they're getting, and even Maine Venture Fund. Maine Venture Fund hasn't found a company that really fits their investment profile, but they've said they've had some incredible conversations with businesses about equity investing and about what it takes. And so it's really an educational tool, and I think it's been very successful in again connecting businesses with resources that they otherwise didn't know existed. And I think that's half of our mission is getting businesses educated, the other half is getting them funded. So I think sky's the limit from here. And then let me just pull up actually I'll just put in my chat or the chat my contact information if you have any questions.
While you're doing that, Jonathan, I have a question that
Yes.
might be basic, so I'm hoping some of you can help me with this answer. How do small businesses get their credit score? Because I know that was one of the questions, and I honestly wouldn't know for my business what I would select. Does anybody have any guidance for me there?
I think you go through one of the usual suspects, credit agencies. I think with the last time I did it, it was a personal request, but what I did was I said, get my credit score, and there was a link that got me 3.
And it's your person, and we ask, it's a self-reporting your personal credit score because most of the agencies require a personal guarantee on the loans. Unless
So
it's
do most commercial banks. That's
yeah.
not, yeah.
It's actually the business owner's credit score.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And more banks and credit cards these days, through their online portal, are providing credit scores, FICO scores.
Yeah, I know my own. I just didn't
Yeah.
know. Okay,
And
so
that's
that's
what it
good
would be.
clarity.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's not used. So the credit score at this phase is not used to do anything. It's just an awareness. And the reason it is because a great example is CEI's Wicked Fast Loan is kind of, do you fit CEI's investment criteria, and then what's your credit score? And so that's kind of really the only criteria for a Wicked Fast Loan at CEI is business plan and credit score. It doesn't go into full detailed underwriting. And so a lot of the microloan programs in the state are kind of credit score based and business plan based.
Great,
So
thank you.
while you get your contact information into the chat, Jonathan, I just want to note to people that DECD has, I just found this out, has altered its approach to business outreach, and they now have a place where you can make an inquiry, and again, about wanting to assemble some resources, and again, a real person gets back to you. So they've personalized that, as opposed to some of you are familiar with the MXG group. They're just starting at the grassroots now. And they've got a team of people at DECD who will point you in the right direction for organizations.
That was a lot of acronyms, Carrie.
Okay.
DCD. Does everybody know what those are? Because we might be able to use Carrie's brilliance to help us.
Yeah, DECD is Department of Economic and Community Development. I think they've gone through a name change.
Okay.
So just go onto their website, which I still think is decd.org or gov.
Maine.gov/DECD.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then the Office of Business Development has business kind of resource navigators, depending on the size of your business, and then also has a service called Business Answers, which if there's basic questions, how do I register my business? I want to start a salon.
Yeah.
What type of licensing do I need? They can answer those level of questions as well.
Perfect. Thank you.
What is MXG?
Maine
Maine-
accelerates growth. Sorry, go ahead, Carrie.
Well, actually, why don't you describe it? ACE is a member of it, and it's you describe it, Jonathan.
Yeah,
You
so
probably can do it short.
Maine Accelerates Growth is an initiative of MTI and other partner organizations. It was started, I want to say 10-ish years ago, as a way to accelerate growth, but accelerate, the concentration and growth of high scale, high growth capable companies. So, thinking tech and other type companies. And so they bring together various advisors, entrepreneurs, and potentially investors in a monthly cadence to discuss, news, events, and particularly answer questions around growing a high growth business.
In terms of high level companies, if you look at the Maine Funding Network, you'll see most of the members of MXG.
All right. Are there any other questions for Jonathan?
I don't have a question. Well, maybe it's a question. But Jonathan, I recently found out about the Maine Workforce Training Compact through the Maine Community College system.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're aware of them. I told them about you. I don't see them on your list, maybe because they don't fit your category, because it's not just investing in the business, but it's training.
Yeah, I think it's funny. President Dagler sits on Fame's board, and so we've talked about including workforce development agencies in tandem, and I think that goes to the question of how narrow focus do we stay around funding? Is there a broader need for the Maine Business Network, that has everything under the sun, and what type of level of effort would be required to get us to that point. So there's lots of conversations around it, but thank you.
I just didn't know it from what you've described, maybe it doesn't fit. But yeah, it's an interesting model that also supports training, which fits our from a consultant's point of view, it's a need.
Right.
It sure is.
Thank you.
Yeah. So if there are Carla has a question or a statement.
Yeah, I don't really have a question. I have a statement too. Jonathan, I just want to thank you for doing this, because I know when I was firing up my consulting business in 2019 during the pandemic, the soup of acronyms and just trying to navigate the waters, unless you have that sort of institutional knowledge that Carrie and other people have, it was so frustrating to be able to advise clients on what was there. And this is fantastic that you've pulled the trigger on this. I couldn't be happier.
Yeah. Carla, to make you feel better, it took me 5 years to learn those acronyms. And it was like pulling one thread at a time.
Yep.
It was truly frustrating.
Yeah.
Charlie?
Yes, Jonathan, when on this different subjects that you outlined, one of them was equity financing. Could you spend a little time on how much, what are the parameters? What are you looking for when it comes to equity financing?
So as far as equity, again, we just have the two providers currently, Maine Angels and Maine Venture Fund. And so the way it works for them is they have a little bit different workflow of you would go to Maine Funding Network and say, and I can show you, since they obviously will not take part in the common loan application, we changed the workflow a little bit for the advisors and equity investors. So if I go to Maine Venture Fund, if I were to submit the match request to provider, I'd click on it and it says, Maine Venture Fund has a unique intake form. By clicking away, I need to fix that. You'll be taken to Maine Venture Fund's intake form. And when I click that button, Maine Venture Fund would get a notification and just say, "Hey, Jonathan Poole of Bike Shop uh, visited your intake form." And then when you go to MVF's intake form, I don't know if you're familiar, but essentially you need to present financials, pitch deck, cap table, all these different things that most people don't have prepared. And so the reason is we're trying to do a little bit higher qualification of leads going to our equity investors as opposed to, you know, our lenders like CEI and Community Concepts that are really used to working with people who have nothing prepared. And so that's kind of the line there. And so, but it gives Maine Venture Fund a good thing to compare against because they'll see, oh, Jonathan clicked the link but never submitted the intake form. I'm going to follow up with Jonathan and say, hey, is there a reason you didn't want to fill out so that they can follow up still, but they're not required to like the other providers.
So Jonathan, is equity financing somebody or some business that wants to have a stake in your company and sort of join as partial owner? Is that what that means?
So the way equity investing works for those that don't know is you're presented, very early stage companies, high risk, and the investors are expecting high risk, high reward. And so what they're hoping for is and the thing is 10x. So if they make, $100,000 investment, they want $1 million on the back end. And so that model doesn't work for a lot of companies that are never going to hit that growth profile. So if you're starting a restaurant, a retail shop, or something like that, you're just not going to make that return. And so they're looking for companies that are going to grow a certain percentage year over year. And so they fit a certain type of business profile. And so they're very picky on who they engage with. And again, so they, in exchange for the money, they take, instead of interest over time, they'll take a stake of your company and then hoping that you either after a certain period of time, you will be bought out. So you'll be acquired by another firm, or you as the business owner generate enough revenue to buy out your other investors.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Yep.
Point of information. I spoke to Maine Venture Fund, and the most they said they could ever invest would be 50,000, and they basically were very negative. They said that there's a lot of hoops you got to go through, and is it really worth it? So I was kind of surprised that they were
Maine Venture Fund's cap is $500,000 for a single investment, and again, it's hard for them because of Charlie, you're in the forest products business, of the growth profile doesn't really fit what their investment profile looks like, and so they're walking a fine line of both being a public investment agency and trying to generate returns to make sure the fund can live on.
So Maine Angels does equity also, though.
Yep.
Yes.
So Maine Angels does equity. They're different than Maine Venture Fund. They are a group of private investors that operate under the title Maine Angels, and so they're very tied to Maine and want to see the growth of Maine, and they're willing to take lower returns in support of Maine entrepreneurship. But they are a private group that operate under the title Maine Angels.
So just in general terms, I think that this is fantastic. I've taken some companies through some consortium type arrangements and pulling together, CEI and AvCog and FAME, and I think that it would have been fantastic to have a common to not have to herd all those cats.
Yeah, and Mike, in that example, if let's say you had a business in Lewiston that needed that $2 million loan. They could do this and then submit to CEI, AvCog, and FAME. And when they talk to a loan officer, say, I need $2 million. I'd like to work with all three agencies. And then we're all set up to collaborate on the back end. There's no secure emails, wire transfer, transfers that need to happen of documents. You submit one application, the documents all go to one place. It's a very easy way to work.
Yeah, this is music to my ears, and we had seed capital tax credits in there. We had, and the whole thing was taken out by a commercial lender. In 2 years, and but the fact that we had all these agencies together just made the paperwork voluminous, and it was just a real hassle. And
And
so
seed,
having all
seed
of this on the
capital's,
front end.
yeah, seed capital is not part of this yet, but I think we'll add
Okay.
tax credits eventually. So we'll add Dirigo, we'll add seed capital, we'll add the Maine New Markets Tax Credit Program, the CEI,
Yeah.
what is it? CEI Capital, they're
Mm.
they're the broker of National New Markets Tax Credits. So
Yeah.
Are the reporting, is reporting to the lenders, investors similarly consolidated? If
So
you,
the way I've been reporting back to our members is they get to see their own metrics, so they can see, you know, how many they've accepted and matched with and all that. And I'll send out a kind of a quarterly report to say, you know, in total, the Maine Funding Network has engaged with 500 businesses. We've closed this many loans and whatever. So I'll send that out kind of as an aggregate report. And again, I forgot to mention this in its history, but one of the goals of the Maine Venture Fund, or I keep saying Maine Venture Fund because it's on my screen, the Maine Funding Network is to get that statewide data to try to determine where there are potentially gaps in our offerings as public and nonprofit agencies. So if, you know, there is a group of businesses that fit this profile that need this amount of capital and we just don't have the resources to provide it, you know, hopefully getting that statewide data would be really helpful to as we design future funding programs.
But I think Carrie's question, or maybe it's not, but my question is, the reporting from someone who's
client.
received funding.
Yes.
That's
Is that
consolidated,
as
so-
well, or is it only on the application side?
So and by report it, like, what do you mean by reporting?
Periodic reporting of financials.
Oh,
back to-
that's with the lender. So underwriting and servicing happens at each individual lender.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is anything that captured in the client file for that?
No. So it's kind of once all information is collected on the common loan application, each agency would pull it down and download it for underwriting and servicing in whatever systems they're using independently. And then the file is kind of closed out on the Maine Funding Network.
Charlie?
For the benefit of everybody on this call, I would just want to tell you that the New Market Tax Credits is a great program. I mean, it's really cool. What's weird though about it is like where our plant is located, we don't qualify, but right next door and around us, all the other towns do. And they said it's got to do with the census. So, Jonathan, not to put you on the spot, but is there any way, does anyone know how to get a hold of the people at the census and say, how could you screw up like this?
I wish I had the authority to pull the Census Bureau together to tell them they screwed up. But I think, you know, the federal New Market Tax Credit Program, I think is relying on opportunity zones, which is a program that, you know, started in the Bush administration and is to attract investment to rural and urban areas throughout the country. And so it is a federal program that I think the redesignation of opportunity zones happens in collaboration with our delegation to Washington and the state government. And so I have, you know, very little oversight over, you know, the opportunity zone or new markets tax credit eligibility. There is a state new markets tax credit program, which mimics the federal program, has a little bit more flexibility in geographic areas, but it's currently unfunded. There is a bill in this session to refund the program, but it is currently unfunded.
Thank you, Jonathan. What's so weird is like we're not in the opportunity zone either, you know. So you know,
and it's you know, just the original design of the opportunity zones were, you know, again to support Madison and Skowhegan, and I think Bingham just didn't fit into it.
All right. Well, this has been excellent. Jonathan, thank you for sharing all of the information that you did. I'm going to put a little plug in for ACE here because this is what we do every month. We get together, we share information. The information is either helpful to us in our own business or it could be helpful to our clients. So if you're not currently a member of ACE and you want to look at that, I dropped the website in the chat. It's just consultexpertise.com. And we'd love to get your application and have you join. not very expensive, and we get Maine Biz, and we have all kinds of opportunities to write for Maine Biz and expose our business. So join us if you're not already a member and this was helpful to you.
Great. This is great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Great to see you. We've got a little found time in our calendars, everybody. That's also a good thing.